as well, so I'm happy to take that.
Thank you, Senator Gallagher.
Ms Stabe, how does your conduct when you advised your executives of the potential involvement of the AFP reconcile with your statement about just culture and no retribution?
Senator, when there is the just culture is about people coming forward and reporting matters around safety and any other matter for that matter. When there is, like we talked about the fraud issue, when we have to refer things to the police, that's entirely appropriate. So I can't see how there's an issue there.
Well, I just wonder when you have a credit card misuse, fraud, whatever, and the police don't get notified, if someone was to inform me that you'd avoided responsibilities under the Public Works statute, they potentially would have been referred to the police. I find that extraordinary.
Sorry, Chair, can I just... Sorry, Senator Gallagher, you still got questions to ask on that, or can I just ask a supplementary in relation to that? Insofar as I think I apologise that I wasn't clear, when I asked whether you could provide details of the date and the circumstances of that matter where the Australian Federal Police was raised, if you could take that on notice, and insofar as if the matters in the context of which it related to was something that you consider ought to be dealt with in camera, then you could put that request to the committee. I'm primarily interested in the whole issue of safety issues in respect of that. But just to, in terms of the interchange with Senator Gallagher, then what I don't understand is that if there's an issue of fraud, obviously you want to refer it to the AFP, but as I understand it, Senator Gallagher was raising the issue in the context of leaks, which is different from an issue of fraud, criminality. It's an issue of a, you know, the difference between dealing with an issue of fraud, which of course ought to be referred to the AFP, but I think Senator Gallagher was raising it in the question of a leak. Is that right, Senator Gallagher?
What was put to me is that Ms Stabe brushed aside concerns that she wasn't adhering to the Public Works statute.
Senator.
I've put that to Ms Stabe. Ms Stabe has refuted that, and subsequently someone has told me that the senior executives were lined up, someone's leaking, if it keeps going I'll call the AFP in.
That's all I know.
All right.
Well, that you would agree that that appears to be inconsistent with your previous public statements in terms of just culture, courage and no retribution?
No, Senator, when it gets to issues, if there are leaks and we start to stray into areas where it's commercially sensitive, that's a concern. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not a member of the Public Works Committee and likely never will be, but my understanding is that Senator Gallagher asked you a series of questions, as did Senator Heffernan, in respect of the, as to whether the Public Works Act or the relevant legislative instrument was being adhered to. I understand that there was some toing and froing as to whether it was or not in respect of these particular public works. If you were talking about calling in the Federal Police over an issue where there was a live issue of interpretation as to whether concerns were raised as to whether your organisation was complying with relevant legislative provisions in respect to public works, that seems to me to smack of retribution, does it not?
No, Senator, as I've explained, in terms of, Senator Gallagher asked me said that it had been put to him that when I was advised about the non-compliance with the Public Works Committee, that I ignored that. That is not true, and I've outlined the actions I took. So in regard to...
Well, sorry, this is very important. So again, I don't have the same intimate knowledge that Senator Gallagher does, but there are issues raised as to whether there was a non-compliance, issues raised with the Public Works Committee, correct? I just want to...
Yes,
that was an issue. Okay, I don't know anything much about it other than basically what I've heard from Senator Gallagher. If as a result of that you had a meeting of your senior executives and said there might be a leak, this might have to go off to the AFP, is that what happened?
There was not a direct correlation. I was saying to the executive team that there's a lot of issues being raised outside the organisation, and I'm worried that where that is going because it could impact our business operations.
Okay.
or
but
words to that
isn't-
effect.
isn't-
I can't...
Okay, but isn't the context, and I think it would be good if we could see the minutes, any minutes in respect of that, isn't it in the context of Senator Gallagher raising concerns about compliance or non-compliance? I'm not saying there was, in respect of a certain public works. And then you raise it as a result of a line of questioning from Senator Gallagher about the issue of the AFP being brought in respect of leaks. It's not an unreasonable proposition, as Senator Gallagher put forward, that there appears to be a correlation between some legitimate concerns being raised in the context of this parliament, of this parliamentary process, and calling in the AFP. I mean, indeed, I think that I wonder, and I'll seek advice from the Clerk of the Senate, whether it raises issues of privilege. I mean, do you see? Was there not a correlation between the two, or if I misunderstood it, was it about something completely different?
Can I, Chair?
Sorry, just a question. Is it?
Just to help.
I don't want to verbal anyone. I just want to understand whether it relates to Senator Gallagher's line of questioning about public works and whether that triggered the issue of raising the issue of the federal police. I'm just trying to understand whether there was a link between the two, or is it something completely different so we can just move on?
I have to go back and look at my notes, but I thought it was, my recollection, it was something different. The Parliamentary Works Committee, Public Works Committee, as I said, the Senator asked me a question about had I ignored advice from staff, a senior person, and I had not.
Right.
So there was no issue around that.
Sorry, Glenn, I want to ask this. Sorry. I just want to okay. So the sequence of events, you were asked whether you ignored advice from staff, and you had not, and I accept what you say in respect of that. I'm not here taking you to task on that. But what I'm concerned about is if, as a result of that question, a legitimate question, I dare say, by Senator Gallagher, and you rebutted it, and to me that puts an end to the matter, but if you then say we should get the AFP brought in as a result of Senator Gallagher's line of questioning, that worries the hell out of me. There appears to be a link between the two, is there not?
Senator, I just can't recall a direct link like that. It was about some other... I can't recall.
Well, hang on. Senator Gallagher asks you about whether there was a problem with the public works, whether there was compliance or non-compliance. You've said that there was compliance, and I accept that. But then you have a meeting of your senior executives and you raise a spectre of an AFP involvement. Isn't there a cause and effect there? What else could it have been? I mean, no, I'm not asking you, Mr. Rodwell. I'm sorry.
I'll have to... I just can't recall the sequence of that event. There were a number of issues raised outside of the organisation, and I was concerned that that's not good practice.
But it's okay if it's about safety. You don't have an issue about that, do you? If someone raises safety concerns with us, you don't have an issue about that.
No, Senator.
Because that's where I'm coming from. Mr. Rodwell, I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear Ms. Staves' answer.
Senator, can I just reaffirm? Safety, anyone could raise with anyone safety issues, and we will deal with the issue.
Mr. Rodwell, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, I just wanted to hear Ms. Staves' answer.
Certainly, Senator. I was just going to reiterate that. You know, any matter that relates to safety, we take very seriously, and there's no issues in regard to reports on that.
But I'm worried that Senator Gallagher was doing his job about whether there was compliance or non-compliance with respect to public works, and there seems to have been a request to go to the AFP. That worries me. So maybe in fairness, we can get things on notice in respect of that.
Can I just clarify something?
I want to clarify.
Eh?
I want to clarify something on this. Ms. Staves, you said you couldn't remember when it was. Would you know if it was in the last couple of weeks? Or was it a year ago? Or?
No. It was in the last... look, I can't be precise about the time, but certainly it wasn't last year.
It was recently?
It's recent.
Was any of these fine people at the meeting when you raised this concern?
Yes.
Any of you remember?
Yes, Senator.
Can anyone recall what day it was?
It was a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago.
Okay, none of you all looked me in the eye, none of you that were there can remember what day?
Not offhand, no, but it was about...
You can't find out in the next 5 minutes just
I
to
can,
appease
yes.
Senator Xenophon? Can someone at the back make a phone call back to the office?
If I may just...
Order.
I put to Ms Stabe at the Public Works meeting that it had been reported to me that she had ignored advice from her executives to follow the statute of the Public Works. She, quite straightforward and upfront, refuted that. The concern is, when was the meeting with the executive team? If it was after the Public Works Committee, and I had accepted Ms Stabe's refutal, if it was after the Public Works Committee hearing, we need to know that.
All right, so can I just... you said that you canvassed the idea of bringing the AFP in response to matters raised by the executive outside the organisation. In phrasing your words that way, were you referring to staff speaking to parliamentary people? Or, and if you were, there are probably issues of privilege that you need to acquaint yourself with?
I've alluded to that, Chair. I've alluded to that. So that might be relevant for the class.
So maybe you should go and get some advice on that.
Can I just clarify? I just asked, could someone make a phone call back to the office to find out so Senator Gallagher and Senator Xenophon could be, their question could be answered? Can someone do that now? There's someone at the back of the room, please. Then when there's no confusion.
Senator, we meet as an executive on a regular basis. We meet at 8:30 of a morning. We have more formal, regular meetings. Whether or not that can be
I was
established.
threatened with the AFP, and I was in a meeting. I'd know what day it was. Okay, this is. Look,
while that's happening,
every meeting.
What we may adjourn for a couple of minutes, but look,
It's not hard.
I've sort of got in the habit over the years of being pretty blunt. Look, we recognise that you're in charge of air safety and the public needs to fly safely. It's a pity if all that's being tarnished because of rivalries or whatever at executive level. I am assured by all sorts of people who observe what goes on at executive in your organisation that some of you guys, boys and girls or whatever, don't get on. I think, Ms Stabe, you ought to get your mob to grow up. I mean, surely you don't have to bitch and fight with one another at executive level. And if you could get through that phase, the best way to handle it, if someone tells me to get knotted, especially by email, they always get a phone call. I never send an email. And I say to them, look, I'm so pleased you've had the opportunity to tell me to get knotted, Mr Clark or Mr Rodwell. Now, what can I do to help you? That's the way to handle it. Get over it. We'll adjourn for a couple of minutes.
I'd like to call for a private meeting.